Hey, what's up, everybody? Video 44 coming at you with another video. All right, so just sitting here looking at some Laker numbers and paying attention to some stuff that's happened since we made the trade. Nothing too major. Um, Tomorrow the Lakers play the Dallas Mavericks around 12:30 Pacific time. That game will be in Dallas, and I'm just considering how well Malik Beasley has been shooting and how good he's looked in this Laker uniform over 4 games of play. We think about the Portland Trailblazer game. He went 6 of 12 from behind the arc yesterday, or rather against who was it we just played? He went 7 for 11 in this previous matchup, and you know, there's just been a lot of good play out of him, a lot of good shooting out of him, and I just really like what I've seen in that short amount of time. That starting him has been a good decision for Darvin Ham. Um, just having him next to LeBron James is really giving us the dynamic we thought we would see all these years when we were considering the fact that LeBron James needed shooters and how much easier games would be for us as a team if we just had a legitimate shooter on the floor with him at all times. I'm looking at something else as well. I'm trying to wrap my mind around how best to view Anthony Davis, his gameplay, because in the previous matchup he had only 5 attempted shots, 3 of 5. It didn't matter because we got it through the course of the flow of the game. It wasn't necessarily something that we were necessarily needed him to do in terms of shooting more shots. You look up and you see Malik Beasley and all the shots he attempted were within the flow of the game, and you wanted him attempting that many given the fact that he was on fire. You look at Austin Reeves and he had 6 attempts, made all of his. You look at Braun, went 5 for 20. That's a really, really strange kind of occurrence because he wasn't necessarily forcing shots either. It was just a really different way of looking at things. It was almost like, I was listening to As It Stands talk about LeBron James's way of approaching that particular game. It was almost like he was getting others involved and still shooting plenty, but because he decided to get others involved earlier, it was almost as if it was difficult for him to get into the regular rhythm of things, and that's why he shot 5 for 20. Looking at that, I just wonder if that was him trying to get others involved just because they're new pieces, or if that's going to be something that he feels he doesn't necessarily, where he doesn't have to go after it early to get his own shot. Maybe it's in the best interest of us to get others involved permanently earlier in the game rather than for him to get his rhythm going. And how does that necessarily affect things? Will he be cold trying to get used to that, and will it cost us in the long run as we're trying to win just about every game we have left to play? So these are things that are just racing through my mind as I'm assessing our team and how we've played over the last several games. Skipping back to Anthony Davis and what my initial thought was, I'm trying to broaden my mind in regards to how best to view Anthony Davis as it pertains to him playing well or not, because I've been on this camera saying that I think he needs to shoot more and we got to force him the ball in the second half of games. And while that was so important for the team that we had before making the trade, that may not necessarily be what is necessary for this particular unit. And so as I try to assess what I've just seen with this team over the last 4 days, I'm trying to adjust my thinking if necessary. And so as I look at that 3 of 5 and I look at the Beasley numbers, I look at Hachimura, I look at Reeves, and I listen to As It Stands, he's essentially saying he believes that we should diversify more so, just like we did in this previous matchup where we had 8 guys in double figures, Beasley with the high man at 25, and walked out of there with a double-digit win. It seems to me that because we have so many offensive weapons, it really does make sense to lean on what he's saying. Now, in my previous video when we're talking about this, I said that the thing I thought was the easiest thing for us to do was to give the ball to LeBron James and Anthony Davis 75% of the time, because we don't run that two-man game enough to get the ultimately the easiest advantage that we'll have against most teams, because that two-man game is difficult to stop. But neither one of them are healthy. Both of them are dealing with a bad foot, and so running the ball through them 75% of the time is just meaning they're going to get hurt. So as I reassess my thought and I think about what he said, I actually lean on what he said, which is diversify more. We need more Austin Reeves. We need more Patrick Beverly. I'm thinking of Malik Beasley. I've said Patrick's name so much, but it's Beasley who I'm thinking of. Troy Brown, I want to see him shoot more because that 3-point shot he shot in that last game, that high arc was pretty. He should have attempted more in theory, but we didn't need it. It's that kind of thing. It's like, I like the fact that we were able to get Lonnie Walker involved in garbage time because he was able to show his efficiency. I feel like if he would have been leaned on all game, he probably would have walked out of there with 30 points. And I look back, my mind skips back to what we saw from the Clippers and the Kings last night with Malik Monk going for 45. It's like these are the type of levels that our shooting guards tend to have, but we don't necessarily feed them like that or even know it because this is their first time being able to show this, given the fact they're in the opportunity to finally get those minutes with our franchise. So Malik was a shooting guard last year. This year, in that same situation, is Lonnie, and I just don't want Lonnie's minutes to go left in the second half of the season when we really do have a need for what it is that he does, particularly in the open court with fast break plays and easy buckets at the rim. This dude can finish as well as anybody on our team. So as we continue to assess who needs to play and who doesn't, I don't think we're assessing this properly, moving him all the way down the depth chart. That's just not right for us, in my humble opinion. But what I saw yesterday, or in the last game, was a diversified amount of minutes. And granted, some of that was skewed by the fact that we had garbage time available to us with the blowout win. But I did like the fact that we had balanced minutes. And all of that is not as easy to come by when your matchups don't allow for it. But I just think that the more players we use with the type of team we have, the depth we have, the fresher we keep everybody, and the better we'll keep everybody. You know what I mean? You don't want guys that sit too long, 2 and 3 games, play 5 minutes, and then not play for a week. They come back worse players when you do call their number. So with the depth that we have and the parity that we have amongst our bench, there should be no reason guys get more than each other if we can make it make sense. And so I don't know that we can, which is why my mind's skipping all over the place as it pertains to minutes, because I'm the same guy that'll tell you minutes mentality is bad for us. Don't play guys just by minutes. But when you consider the depth that we have, you consider the ability that we have with most of our players being of similar height, so they're switchable, you can kind of see reasons to see yourself playing more guys in more combinations over the next 22 games. You know what I mean? So that can make it make sense depending on, again, the matchups. And a lot of that, see, the thing about what we have in front of us is because it's a 22-game schedule, you can zero in on these teams a bit more than maybe you would have in the first half of the season as it pertains to you knowing who you have to play against and preparing your rotations for the potential of the matchups that you'll see. Now, granted, sometimes players will not play, so that'll throw everything off. But we can get a genuine gauge of what it is we're looking at over the next 22 games and kind of zero in on some of these teams. So the Dallas Mavericks, obviously, we'll have a whole video on that tomorrow. I don't want to zero in on them like that just now, but we do understand that one thing about the Dallas Mavericks is they do not have any strong interior defensive situation going on for themselves right now. Much has been said about Dwight Powell on this channel and how I've heard so much about Dallas fans complaining so much about Dwight Powell playing so much. We've talked about it more than once, and because we're going to be seeing their team tomorrow, I'm curious to see what they're going to do with their front court situation. Much has been said about Christian Wood and how he hasn't been playing as much and how he hasn't been featured very much. But he loves to play against his hometown Lakers. He's from Long Beach. So these are the things that you need to be thinking about early. As if you're a Laker fan, if you're a Laker team or what have you, you definitely want to consider what an interior advantage may mean for you with AD, Bron, Vanderbilt, obviously Mo Bamba and how he's coming off his double-double. And I kind of want to segue into what I've seen from him. I like what I saw from him. Even though his shots that were missed were glaring, they were very glaring misses. I thought that might have been jitters from first putting on a new uniform. But all in all, in that second half, he really stepped up his game. And you saw his length, his ability to block shots, and his intent rebounding the ball was what really stood out for me. When he seals a rebound, it's in his hands. He's got that thing sealed off, and he want everybody to know he got it sealed off. And it's just a style of rebounding that finishes plays, in my opinion. And I like what I saw from Mo Bamba. I think his intention is to reestablish himself as a starting center And I don't think it's going to be long before he finds his confidence in his uniform. I don't think he's a role player. I don't think he sucks. I think when he's gotten big minutes, he's shown that he's a real player. The problem is injuries. He gets hurt, and then he gets thrown back out there to try to come back from the injury, just like everybody else, and he doesn't work himself quite back into shape based on the history as well as you would like to see. And some of that had to do with, of course, the rotations and who all was in place. It didn't allow for him to really get a consistent amount of minutes ever with the Orlando Magic. So his situation here, completely different. We need him. We're going to need the things that he does in terms of shooting the ball. We're never going to ask him to be somebody he's not. But I will say I would challenge him to become open-minded about what a post-game can do for his overall game. And I'm not saying he needs to go to a post-game or start turning into Hakeem Olajuwon or into a fossil. But I'm saying there are things you can do in the paint that will make your game so much easier once you start establishing them old man moves. Because some of that stuff the guys run into, they get so lost in the paint that they don't realize they can go into certain actions that'll get them a bucket if they just practice the stuff. And that's what I want a guy like him who's from this new era to be open-minded about. Because even though that stuff is old school, I still see opportunities to where some of the guys from this era, they just get lost in the paint. They don't realize that there are things they can do. And it's like, yo, you can do some stuff right there to make your bucket easier, so much easier. Just establish those fundamentals. So I want to see him do that. I know he doesn't really have any of that in his game. He's not from that era. It's probably not his mentality. But there's some stuff he can do that make his game easier for him, just like every big man in this league, with his back to the basket and things like that. So getting in the paint, establishing his length. Obviously, his arms are longer than everyone else. He stands 7'1", I believe it is. I want to see him take advantage of his ability to get in passing lanes. Obviously, he loves to shoot from behind the arc, so that means it would stand to reason he would have a special respect for guarding the perimeter as well as a big man. And things like that. I just want to see what type of player he finds himself becoming in certain situations. How well does he play off of guys like Vanderbilt and AD, who are excellent defenders? Does his length complement them very much? Games where AD isn't involved, how does he look next to Wenyen Gabriel? You know what I mean? Can he establish himself in different lineups where shooting is supposed to be leaning on him for whatever reason? These are things I'm wondering about. And so as he continues to establish himself as a double-double threat, which I think is imminent every night, and a blocking threat, which I also think is imminent every night, I see opportunities for him to both come off the bench and be a starter and really, really help us every single night. So that's what I'm excited about there. I don't think much has been said about him. And he's one of the few guys on this team that's never played with anybody on this roster. Most of the guys on this team have teammates and different cliques that have, they've been a part of. Not him. None of these dudes play for Orlando to my knowledge. And I don't know if he's played with any of these guys in college. I think he went to Duke. I don't know. So that's the thing. He's going to have to be the one guy that's really establishing himself all new. I don't know nobody, but I'm coming here to be a part of the team. So that should be a very, very good seamless fit, given the fact that his skill set matches what we need. Skipping on, I think, Vanderbilt, I think he's living up to what it is I told you guys he would be about in regards to don't expect him to score very much, but do expect him to rebound and defend quite a bit, and that's going to be just fine. So it's one of those situations where if he doesn't score, we'll never call him a no-for gopher, but we always want him to be a part of scoring if possible. Just, he's capable, so we want him to look for his shot. But we know that it's not predicated on him shooting the ball or scoring a lot in regards to him having a good game. So I'm really excited about his upside and what he can do for us in terms of energy. As we said, can he complement AD, Bamba? Can he help with the weak side situations, as we know is his strength? Can we put him out on guards in situations where we'll need to guard smaller players? Can we count on him to take on some of those assignments where necessary? And take pressure off of Bron. We don't want Bron guarding certain people. That's why we picked him up, so that he wouldn't have to be on Zion Williamson, so that he wouldn't have to guard Giannis Antetokounmpo, so that AD wouldn't have to necessarily take on those assignments 100% of the time. So that's where Vando's going to really come in. It's help us. We're going to discover how much he can and cannot do in that regard over the next 22 games. So we'll know what we can rely upon him to do in the playoffs. So that's what we're going to be looking out for. And most importantly, keeping him healthy. He's a pogo stick, so he's going to be coming down where people are going to be landing as well. Coming down on people's ankles, coming down on people's foot. So I would tell him to be mindful of his jumps. People are always waiting for shot blockers to jump. They're always looking to throw a pump fake a guy's way. And if you are a guy like that, that's going to be the discipline. That's how you stay on the floor is staying on the floor, literally. Not falling for pump fakes, not jumping like a pogo stick out the gym. You know what I mean? How you keep your minutes and stay on the floor is by staying on the floor and not going for pump fakes. So that's one of the things I'm thinking about. Obviously, he's an excellent rebounder. Obviously, this is something that he knows. Staying out of foul trouble is important as well. And for coaches, like, look, man, I know you've pushed some people back, like we said about Lonnie Walker. I know everybody here is probably tired of me mentioning Wenyen Gabriel and how good I believe he is. But I do believe that we can afford to do certain things that allow for taking chances with Vanderbilt because I trust Wenyen Gabriel. It's really that simple. If Vanderbilt's in a situation where he's guarding an especially talented player and he's got 3 fouls in the first half, probably want to sit him in most situations. But what I'm saying is, if for some reason coach decides to gamble in that situation, we don't fall off a cliff if we're not afraid to use Wenyen Gabriel. It's essentially what I'm saying. You're not going to fall off a cliff if some wild stuff happens with Vanderbilt, so long as you just keep Wenyen playing regular rotations. What I said in the beginning of the video, not letting guys sit for 3 and 4 games in a row and then asking them to come back out there and get it together. That's where we go wrong. It's essentially what I'm saying. Stop doing that with Wenyen. It just shouldn't necessarily ever happen anyway, given the health issues that Anthony Davis has. You know what I'm saying? Given what we're dealing with the bronze foot. Use your bigs, man. Simply put. So that's one of the things I want to see Darvin do. Just not exclude certain players from the rotation. Our stars don't need to play big minutes anymore. They just simply don't. If anything, we need to try to hide them as much as possible, all the way up into the playoffs. Now, and that's why I've turned my tune from that 75, lean on them 75%. If they're healthy, if you want to lean on Anthony Davis and LeBron James for the majority of play just down the stretch, if for some reason it makes sense to try to overwhelm teams defensively, you want to keep them as fresh as possible. So that's my thing. At this point, rather than just leaning on them, like I said before, use that where you should, and then let the other guys do the heavy lifting. So that's where I'm at with that. D'Angelo Russell, obviously his ankle was rolled. This is going to be a 12:30 matchup game tomorrow in Dallas. It's been said that he's not going to play that game. It's probably just too soon at this point. They probably would just be better to let that thing heal a little further than to send him out there and try to dance with Kyrie Irving. You know what I'm saying? That's just no. You need him to be 100% healthy in that Dallas matchup, and we need him to be 100% healthy down the stretch of these games. So if he's coming back at half mass, that's not going to make him his best self. We have plenty of depth, as we said. There's no reason to play him. So we're going to be leaning on Dennis Schroeder. We're going to be leaning on other guys, and hopefully that means Lonnie Walker gets some minutes. Hopefully that means we'll see some more players that we haven't seen as much. Devon Reed, Max Christie, maybe they'll get some minutes if we can get some good things going in this game. I want us to defend the Dallas Mavericks better, because these last 2 matchups against the Dallas Mavericks, I've said it's been a small ball. The most glaring of small ball matchups has been these 2 Dallas games. And since we lost them both, obviously we need to win this one. So I want to see us do the opposite. Put some size on the floor against this team, please. That's all I'm saying. We got all the size in the world. Put some more on the floor. Rui Hachimura, 5 of 8 in the last game, 14 points. He didn't start off looking very good in the first half, but really closed out with a good second half. He's another one of those guys I'm trying to behold properly. How do I behold a good Rui Hachimura basketball game? Because he had no assists, no steals, no blocks. And my thing is, I always scrunch my eyes at stuff like that. I hate stats that only show me scoring. I can't stand it. But if it's all we need you to do, and you do it at an efficient enough level, then it should be something we should definitely welcome. So I know Rui Hachimura can always get down with more rebounds. He can do more in the defensive lanes and things of that nature. I'm never going to look for him to be an assist man, but I want to see him contribute in other areas statistically to help his team if possible. And I'm pretty sure he will. You don't just want to be a score, rebound guy. That's average in this league. You got to be able to contribute in other areas. And I believe with the minutes that we're giving him, it's kind of difficult to do that. With what we're asking him to do, some of the situations we put him in, it's kind of like, okay, finish the play. And it's like, I guess we want to kind of get him in different actions, allow him to do more things. But one thing I do like that we've been doing is finding him deep into the post, underneath the basket. Since he's such a big player, he can finish those on most players that are trying to guard him. So we've been doing a good job of finding him under those in those situations. We need to continue to do that. Have him seal people out under the paint. So yeah, these are things that I'm thinking about, man. Gotta see this team continue to have that playoff emphasis, that intensity that only you're gonna get from understanding your situation. The Lakers are obviously in 13th place. We're still in dogfights with teams like the Blazers and the Thunder and the Golden State Warriors. These are the teams that we're battling with at the moment, and we're trying to get in here to the playoffs. At the end of the day, we didn't want to sign up for just a play-in tournament matchup. We've been in the play-in tournament for the last 2 years. In fact, the play-in tournament itself doesn't know itself without us, since it's only been implemented for 2 years. But we need to get out of that. We need to get out of the play-in tournament. We need to get into the playoffs, and we need to find ourselves matched up with any one of these great Western Conference teams, because at this point, it doesn't matter which one it is. You're in for a dogfight all playoff long at this point. That's the way the West is being shaped up. Doesn't matter who you match up with, you're in trouble. That's what it looks like to me right now. And so, as is, we're not matched up with anybody. We still have a lot of winning to do, and we need other teams to do some losing, for which we can help them with by matching up against them and beating them. Tomorrow, of course, is Dallas, and we'll do what we have to do. We know Luka Doncic has given us fits, as we've said, all year long, but we hurt ourselves in those games. We played small in those games. We leaned on people we had no business leaning on in those games and played defense in ways that showcased Luka Doncic in those games. Plus, there was no Kyrie Irving in those games. So this is an entirely different situation. We've made the trades necessary. Unfortunately, D'Lo won't be available, but we do know that we have plenty to throw at that team. They are not better than us. I'm sorry, they're just not. And we're going to prove that tomorrow by throwing depth at them and ultimately putting size on the floor. And if we do so, then they're going to have to prove that they can utilize more than just Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic to beat us. They're going to have to find a way to get something out of Christian Wood and other guys as well, including Green and Hardy, from which I know are going to give us fits. So that's about as much as I'm willing to give that game as of right now. Of course, we'll talk about it tomorrow before the game, and maybe I'll have something else in regards to this team before the end of the night. But that's what I wanted to do. Just wanted to touch down with everybody, let you know what my thoughts are, and hopefully the Los Angeles Lakers can find the continuity necessary in the short amount of time to get us in this playoffs, so we can prove to people we're as good as we think we are. Because if we get a playoff spot, I wouldn't be surprised if we get out of the first round, second round, third round, fourth round championship, because that's exactly how talented this team is. And our core, Bron and AD, if they're 100%, I don't think they need a team this healthy to win most years. They really don't. And so the team this good, this young, with this many shooters, they've won with less, to be completely honest with you. So we're 100% right now, with the exception of again, Russell with the ankle, and he'll be back very soon, I'm pretty sure. And the rest is just us managing this core's foot injuries. At the end of the day, they both got the same injury or something similar with their foot, and it's not necessarily going to get better the more they play on it. So if we can hide them, as I said, forget everything I said about using them 75% of the time. That was desperation and needs for wins. Now that I can see what our team can do, with 8 players in double figures since then, I think diversifying amongst those players and letting them all get a handful of production going is probably a better way forward. So that's what I got to say, man. That's what I have to say. BDL 44. I thank you all for watching.